Thank you, Nadine, and good evening to you all. And thank you very much to the British Library of hosting this tonight's event. So we've been told tonight to share some of our stories and along the side some tips to you, because some of you might be looking to start your own business, and some of you might be having some difficulties and some questions already, but feel free to ask. And so as Nadine said, I run a business called May.com, and our mission is to democratize high-end designs and make it accessible to everyone on the high street in the UK, but also now in Europe, for them to buy. But I thought maybe I should start from the beginning and tell you a little bit how we started. So maybe let me start with myself. So I'm 34 years old this year, and I spent exactly half of my life in China, where I grew up, and the other half of my life in France, and then in the UK. And the town where I grew up in is called Foshan. Now, most of you may never have heard of the name, but it happens to be actually one of the biggest manufacturing base of furniture in China, so probably in the world. And it never occurred to me that would be very useful until one day I decided to buy myself a couch. And that was at a time when I finished my work, my first job from investment banking, so I had a bit of bonus and I wanted to spend, and I had my eye on this beautiful piece of furniture, a couch, a leather Chesterfield couch, £3,000, just around the corner from where I lived. And I was just about to buy it, but I took a picture with my iPhone, and I showed it to a friend who I grew up with back in China, and I showed him, because he went on to take over his parents' factory, and he's a specialist of manufacturing of the sofas. And he said, you know what, buddy? I make this sofa myself. The interesting part is that he actually didn't recognize the brand that I wanted to buy from, but he recognized the shape and design. So, of course, I was very curious. And guess what I asked him as a question? How much you were selling for? And he told me $300. And that was really quite something for me, because the first thing, he was selling a $300 sofa, and then somehow the sofa ended up £3,000 on the high street. The second thing is that he had no idea he was selling a sofa to. And along the side, we discovered that actually whenever you buy something on the high street, there are importers, agents, wholesalers, you name it, loads of intermediaries, loads of middlemen who take a cut. And quite often, one item ends up from 1 to 7 to 10 at the end for your customers, for you. So I thought internet. So I thought, of course, I'm going to buy for myself for a start, but there may be something that I can make a business out of it. So internet happens to be the right medium and the right channel for us to group volume and aggregate the demand to meet the factory's requirement. Factory designers, they can only work in batch. They cannot work by piece. That was the idea of May.com. And now looking back, we are selling in 7 countries. We have around 250 people working for us, and we are still growing about 1 to 2 people every week. So it sort of all makes sense. But looking back then, it wasn't that obvious that you should start a business, because first when I graduated, maybe some of the case of some of you here, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And as I mentioned earlier, I went into investment banking as my first job because I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I thought the least I could do to myself is to get a well-paid job, to get a lot of money. And as I got into investment banking, which was a very prestigious, good name, well-paid, which job consisted mainly in endless Excel crunching and sorry, PowerPoint slides all night long. I find myself starting to a little bit get late for work and even a little bit depressed, and that's how I realized that I wanted exactly the opposite. What in terms of my career, in terms of my professional aspiration. And if you ask some of my friends who are entrepreneurs and why are you starting business, and you may get some answers. We want to change the world. As for me, I was a little bit more selfish. I just want to find a job for myself, something that I can really enjoy, and something that's synonym of freedom, of something that you can get excited in bed, when you get up and you go to work and you can expect some surprises, whatever that means. And so starting the business for me was a meaning of getting a job that's just right for myself. And now we're creating jobs not only for ourselves, but also for other people. And we are also solving a problem for our customers. So, we feel just so lucky and so grateful that we are where we are today. But without the beginning, without the sparkle, and without the opportunity, and without the desire to go to the bottom of it, we would never have been through this long journey. So we've been around for 5 and almost 6 years now, and I think one of the themes tonight, Nadine, you said we're supposed to share some tips to the audience for if you find that useful. And looking back, if we, looking at the growth journey of May.com, there are a few things that I thought was very useful that are key ingredients of the growth path of our business. And I think probably one of the most important thing of them all is the ability or the necessity, I would say, to think out of the box. Because when we started, 5-6 years ago, we suddenly realized, wow, it's a very big industry, but we were competing with people like IKEA, John Lewis, and DFS, very serious businesses. They have loads of cash, and they could easily crush us. Should they choose to do that, we were selling a bunch of pieces without any brand, without any traffic to the website, and most importantly, we don't have any authority in the industry, and it's very hard to get people to work with us. And then we started to look around. We realized that we were not the only ones struggling. There are also some other people. Well, we call them entrepreneurs too. Young designers, people who are just freshly graduated, who are also on their own. They are freelancers. They are trying to make a living. And with the recession, somehow all the big brands, the people who I just mentioned, they become very risk adverse. So they stop innovating. They stop working with designers. They stop promoting young designers who they view as risky. And also on the other hand, they have been working in a certain way for the last 50 or maybe 100 years. So something that you should know for the furniture industry, which is really fascinating, is the way they work. They would think of their collections by seasons: spring collections, summer collections, or autumn collections. And they would send their buyers to the fairs. The buyer would say, "Hey, I like that chair," and I would buy 500 chairs of those. I would put in the warehouse, and then I would pray that this chair sells. Sometimes they do sell, but quite often they don't. And if they don't, they have to promote them, they have to discount them, sometimes they have to get rid of them. And we found that always quite interesting for today's internet world, because you have to wait 6 months until you can see the first product, twice a year. And secondly, what if you can, instead of buying big batches, doing something more frequent and working with smaller people, small batches, in a more tweaked but also more interesting way. So we team up with all the young designers who are struggling just like us, and we work with so many of them that we, instead of launching 2 new collections per year, we were launching 2 new collections a week. Much smaller collections, but much more frequently and much fresher. So I think that was a major decision and key moment of our beginning of the history, the story where we decided something that the big guys of the industry were not doing, but we could afford to do, taking some risk and taking them on a part of the business that they would not be considering of taking. And the other challenge that we were facing also in the beginning was the whole, I guess that it's quite similar to a lot of other online businesses, is the touch and feel factor. As by nature, when you're online, you are virtual. And what we are doing in the furniture industry is very tactile. A lot of people want to touch and feel their products before they make the purchase. Even if you spend £500, £800 for a sofa, it is still a lot of money. Now we have a showroom in Soho, but that only covers a fraction of the audience. So what do we do? When we compare ourselves to people like John Lewis, IKEA, we have a significant disadvantage of not having enough stores. So that day, we did something quite interesting. We uploaded the whole database of our customer on a Google Map. Not sure how legal that was, so keep it for yourself. But we just did it for ourselves, just for fun. And we somehow realized that in a city like London, we have almost at least one customer in every street of London. We say, wow, wouldn't that be amazing if just some of those customers accept to become our showroom? Then we'll beat John Lewis and IKEA, by miles. We'll have the biggest showroom network of the world. And that's exactly what we did. So we launched this initiative called Unboxed, and we invite the customer who have purchased from us to open their homes to other potential customers. So we first uploaded their pictures of their purchase online. So if you go on Made.com today, you'll see a sofa, and you'll see other people's sofa in their real situation in their home, and you can ask questions to the customers. Are you happy with the sofa? Do you like your purchase experience? And you can see them on a Google map as well. So if you're not too far away from that customer, you can say, hey, can I come in and check the sofa? And some people do that, believe it or not. And this is, one of the many things we've done that I think turn our weaknesses into a strength. And things that big guys, when you think of the big corporations, they have so many constraints and so many risk aversions. Can I say that? Yeah. That they cannot allow themselves to take this bold initiatives, and that's where we as startup have a significant advantage. So yeah, what I think Nadine, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But
come and sit down. That's brilliant. Thank you very much.